Thank you, Niluful, for your thumbs up, which indicates, yeah, doing good. So, very good morning. And in this penultimate week of January, we are going to meet with the ninth session on language skills for research or other research communication. We are going to look at a very critical aspect today. As you can see on screen, it's about the literature review. We looked at the introduction last week. I'm sure that we have mastered some of the strategies that would work better to navigate through your introduction. And we explored how AI could be used very effectively, not just to dedicate our task, but to ensure that we learn, integrate human intelligence and, of course, human wisdom in introduction. And today, we'll be doing perhaps a lot because literature review is something that all of you have to deal with. So before I begin everything else, let me ask a simple question from you all. I want you to respond in voice or rather in chat to this question. What actually do you do while you're doing a literature review? What typically do you do? I wish my question is clear. In your own understanding as of the way that you are currently engaged in, what are you doing in literature review? I want your answers to come in handy, either in chat form or maybe you unmute your mic and speak. Indula, can I hear what you typically do in a literature review? Can I hear from Nipun? Or perhaps Pamoda? Well, Binura begins. Thank you, Binura. So, Aslam, thank you. You continued. Ensure when you're writing, make sure that you make it available for everyone to read, unless I'll have to read it again for the others to refer what you have written. Thank you, Aslam. And yes, Nandasena also happened to send, yeah, with the response. So let me read Binura, Aslam, and Nandasena's. Others, please send it to everyone. Now it is made available for you all to send it to be seen by everyone. So Binura begins the dialogue telling that he summarizes key existing studies, compare and contrast approaches, and identify gaps and limitations. Okay. That pretty much says everything, but well, after today's discussion, you'll realize what else is there. Okay. Aslam says, searching what others did for our research question. Yes, Aslam, that is holistically what we are doing in a literature review. Yes. And what Nadasena says is read the existing studies in the domain, understand research gap, compare and contrast results, build research questions. Perfect. Once again, typically the things that we do in a literature review. Others, please respond. I would love if someone can speak because it will add a bit of live nature to the classroom. As you can see, I am also live here. So I want you to be lively appearing here. Hmm? Yep. So friends, in this exercise, please help me moving on because I told often that when I am to preach, it is just the ideas and intelligence of just one single person flowing in. But if all of us are speaking, remember that the little things that we know from every corner comes into the discussion. And that's how a lecture at your stage, a discussion at your stage, be like. Thank you, Metsuri. In the meantime, you sent me, Nizal and Metsuri sent their responses. And Metsuri's response could be seen by everyone. Thank you, Metsuri. You started it. And Nisal's response could not be seen. Therefore, I'm reading it. Reading the existing studies in the domain, understand research gaps, compare and contrast results, build research questions. It looks like in literature we are doing a lot, aren't you? You have to read A, B, C, D, and so on researches, and you have to find their outputs, and of course, you have to relate them into your study, and further, you have to paraphrase, summarize, you have to cite them, add references both in text and in text. Oh my God. And you have to find a research gap in between. Wow. And from all those research gaps, you have to identify a bigger problem. And then the research questions out of the big problem, what area you're going to cover. So this is going to be typically very much of human intelligence required work because it is you, by reading the existing literature, who is going to understand what others have done in your field and what is the status quo, how the very area has evolved from a particular point of time up to now. So by knowing that only, that you can plan your own thing. Well, that involves human intelligence. And number two, you have to get the supervisor's help often in your literature review. For what? Not to ask from him what literature should go and what shouldn't go, but whenever you find your literature, one thing that is quite interesting in a literature review is you can find a plethora of resources from here and there. And they can be all authentic and high-end research. But still, if you put everything that you collected from here and there, from this database and the other database and the other, your literature review is going to be fully messy. So in that point where you need to choose carefully from on which particular purpose, in which dense and length that you should take that literature, those things should be directly consulted with your supervisor. It's because you are there to do the research. Your supervisor is there to frame your research within a ethically correct, very sensible research output. So I'm just telling you now, when you read through literature and when you get the help of generative AI, you are actually incorporating a lot of intelligence in content. And on top of that, when you consult your peers for feedback, when you consult your supervisor for feedback, you're going to refine your understanding further. And when you send it to a reviewer, you get another refining chance. So this is therefore an iterative process where you move from existing literature, you choose your selected literature sample to analyze, and you correlate them as required, and you get the peer review from your peers, and of course your supervisor, and you fine tune it and project to the final output. So thank you very much for those who have sent answers. I think it's a duty of everyone, 40 odd of you, to send your response here. So with that, the summary is that you all know technically what you should do in a literature review, right? We have to acknowledge Minura, Mahesh, Byanuka, Sanduni, Pramod, Metsiri, Nisal, Aslam, and Binura for your responses. But it's a very simple, small sample out of the 40 odd people who are hanging around here. And I have to acknowledge Subhashini as well. Thank you, Subhashini. And this sample of responses convinced me that you know technically what you're supposed to do in a literature review. So I'm not going to elaborate on that, and I'm not an expert in that because your particular field of research is known to you and to your supervisor and to your fellow researchers. I'm a language engineer coming from alien planet to help you simply synthesis, in your synthesis of literature review and rest of the research communication. So let me bring my two pennies into this discussion. Here, let's look at literature review. How can we move it from a simple summary of existing literature to a synthesis? Now, if you look at the two S's, summaries and synthesis, if you keep them side by side, you know what a summary does. And at the end of today's discussion, you're going to know what a synthesis means in contrast to just a summary that you were capable of doing. So we'll be converting our literature review journey from a simple summary to a very engaging research narrative, which is a synthesis. Well, to move on, here we are. The literature review, if you just look at the definition of a literature review, what it says. The definition says it's not just a list of summaries or annotated bibliography. It's a systematic elaboration of the achievements and limitations of other studies. You see, I'm sure that your supervisor has taught you, your course module lecturers have taught you how to create an annotated bibliography, how to tabulate it, and how to take the gist from one study to relate it to your study. You know that art, right? So they could be annotated bibliographies or list summaries or whatever systematic way that you're doing it. But don't ever think that it is the literature review. It is literature reading. It's literature extraction. True. But literature reviewing, you see, it's review in the sense you look at what is existing and you review its pluses, minuses, and of course, where it lacks enough emphasis. I'm acknowledging Subhashini and Sashini as well. Thank you, Sashini. Well, so let's look at the definition. It is a systematic elaboration of the achievements and limitations of other studies. If I happen to ask from you to highlight the key definitional terms in a literature review, what is your response? Now, here I have given a definition, right? And of the definition, it's a two-sentence definition. Refer to the second definition, the second sentence, and pick up three words that you find as really, really keywords. I'm referring to this particular sentence. I'm referring to the highlighted sentence. I want you to pick up 3 key terms that makes the gist of our definition. Quickly, type it and send in chat. What are the 3 key terms you found there? I'm receiving answers. Ensure that you are sending it to everyone, right? Quick, quick, quick. Others, please pick up the 3 key terminology in this definition. I won't be giving you one more minute, more than 1 minute more. Come on, quickly. I'm sure my question is clear. I have highlighted a definition, and from that definition, I want you to pick up the 3 key terms that you consider. It tells about what is a literature review. Okay, okay. So let me simply highlight what they are. And then you can simply find whether you have done your, let me take them and note them down here. The first thing is systematic. Well, systematic elaboration, achievements, limitation. Now you can quickly detect whether you have picked the right choice. Some of you happen to choose bibliography. Okay, forget it, forget it. So the 3 key terminology involved in a literature review includes a systematic elaboration. Now, who does this? You, the writer. And it should be an elaboration in the sense you elaborate on certain facts. And while you're elaborating, there are other facts which are not really elaborated. So elaboration is a choice made by you. And remember, it should be done in a systematic way, not just, take one particular study and elaborate, take another and elaborate, not that, but you have to systematically organize how the elaboration should be done. So thematically map how you start your elaboration, and on the thematic organization you decide, then you take the literature and go on elaborating. And remember, when you're looking at other studies, there are a couple of things, actually 2 things that you have to look at. What are they? What other studies have achieved, that is number 1. what limitations have they got? What they have achieved in their studies, up to what limit? That's it. So systematic literature review, if it is going to be reported with a systematic, elaborative way, is not that difficult. What you have to do is first plan how you organize your literature review after reading, annotating, and all that. Plan how you organize this systematic elaboration. I'll teach you in today's lesson how you can do that. Thank you very much for all those who have responded. And you can mark your answer on this choosing of what? Yeah. What is our goal today? Not today, actually, in a literature review. Our goal is to provide right amount of background, you see, neither too tedious nor too brief. Right amount of background, it allows you to relate your new data to existing studies effectively. Now, there where actually you map, you pitch, you locate your study in existing fields. So you give a not too tedious, not too brief background. And within that background, you relate new data which is coming from your research among the existing data which is in the field right now. So that is the goal of a literature review. Well, now what you're going to see is what we call the storytelling approach. Now, what you tell your reader, your reviewer, your fellow scholar, your reader of your research paper is that you have a story to tell. To put it in a simplest term, you have a story to tell. And how your story is nurtured? It is nurtured from the other stories of other researchers. And you say that other stories do complete the story up to this level, and you are bringing this story written by the collective of other researchers into a next level. That's simply the storytelling approach. So in which actually there are three things that you have to wonder. What are they? The first thing is the narrative arc. What is it? A strong review typically tells a logical story, leading from inevitably to the reason for your investigation. Now remember, in this narrative arc, you are going to actually show your reader or convince your reader one thing. What is it? In your narrative arc, if your review is very strong, what you tell is a logical story. In this logical story, what you are doing is your investigation is reasonified. How? By looking at the other stories available. So don't lose that logical story strength in your narrative. What is number two? This is what we call reference padding. What is reference padding? Often your reviewer, it will be starting from your supervisor and then to your journal paper reviewer, right? Maybe you can have a middle range, your supervisor, then your peers, and perhaps the third, the reviewer, so that you have three gateways to pass through, with which, through gates to pass through, with you're going to fine tune your study. Well, what is it? They typically complain if you add references just to make the paper look longer, every citation must report your specific approach, support your specific approach. Now, one of the typical myths that you all have in your mind is the more references you add to your review makes more advantage for you to get high marks. This is typically wrong. This is perfectly wrong. Why? Why? If you add a reference just to show that your paper is longer, just to show that your reviewer that you have read a lot, and just to show that it fits the need of word count, you are a failure. Because when you cite something, you have to reasonify why you cite it. So the logic that you engrave in your story should be supported by the references that you take in. Without that, what you're doing is you simply pad the references, padding them in, making the whole logic a not really comprehensive, what we call a manuscript, which no one would love to read. Don't do that. The third point, which is once again the second point of avoiding, we call it myopia. What's it? Ensure your review is international. What do you mean by that? Do not rely excessively on papers from your own country, from your own institute, from your own previous work. Now, this is very typical, right? Now, maybe that you have been doing a lot of research in the field and you have a lot of papers behind your name on the same subject, right? And myopia is quite simply one writer who knows about the particular field depends lots on his writings, his previous writings, lot on his fellows' previous writings, lot on his or her institution's previous work, and lot rely on the work done in his context previously. This myopia should be avoided. You have to consider that your review is not just coming from a corner of a global South Sri Lankan university. You have to ensure that your research, your review comes from an international view, from a global view. I wish you got the storytelling approach's 3 points. What are they? There has to be a logical story leading inevitably to reason for your investigation. You reasonify with existing literature the logical story that you're going to set forth. And you avoid reference padding, which means you select carefully the references which actually supports your dialogue, actually supports your logic, and actually supports your endeavor. Whereas you make it, as a second or third point, you make it an international review, not just a review coming from your desk, from your institute, your country alone. Have you got the point? If you have got the point, in a gist statement in chat, quickly send me what 3 aspects that I happen to talk right now. There were 3 aspects: narrative arc, avoid reference padding, and avoid myopia. You don't need to know this, what we call terminology called narrative arc, reference padding, and myopia. Just look at what it tells. Quickly send me. And in the meantime, I would love to listen to one of you if you have got any questions on what I said, or rather, if you have got anything to tell me as something new you catch from what I've been so far talking. If you could find anything new to what you were known about literature review so far. Famada has a question. Yes. How about a review paper? Most requires more than 8 references. Okay, good. That's a benchmark. They ask 8 references. If 8 references is the limit, and if it is just a review paper, yes, still, it doesn't mean that you have to refer only 80, right? You have to refer 800 perhaps and extract data from 80 papers. That's it. 80 is the maximum. That is to ensure, and that's to go beyond the myopia. You might see that the purpose of going for 80 research papers means that you are moving from your field, your research, your team's research, your country's research to global research, and to pick up things from there. Well, I think I answered your question, Manoda. And yes, Aslam. Rangana responded. What about others? My question was, okay, you can ask even questions from me on the things that I happen to tell. So I told you, in a storytelling approach of your literature review, you have to follow three logics. The first thing is about the logic. The second and third thing is about the things that you should not do. What are they? That was my point. That was my question. Hello friends, ඔගොල්ලෝ මාත් එක්ක කතා කරන්න කැමති නැද්ද? Can I hear from one of you? Thank you, Subhashini and Kuzal. Only few of you are answering. I don't know why. Maybe that I may be wasting your time because my talk hasn't got anything good for you to digest. Does it mean that? Does it mean that up to now I've been speaking nonsense, which added nothing to your insights? Can somebody please speak? I love to hear from you so that I'll feel like I'm dealing with live classroom. Oh, are you all angry with me? කට්ටිය මාත් එක්ක තරහ වෙලාවක්ද?
So, good morning, sir. I have one question.
Yes, Subhashini, go ahead.
When we are writing a review article,
Mhm.
for review article, when we are writing a review article, sir,
Yes.
in the review article, when we are writing the methodology section, how
Mhm.
we can elaborate that one?
Well, that's a question that I am going to answer in this particular slides, but let me preview the answer. Now, methodology is all about how the others have done their research. So it's about questioning the method they applied. So out of the many researches that you do, or rather out of the many researches that you read, you have to pick up particular inference to your methodology. What method that you are going to look at, or rather you have to look at how others have done it and what limitations have each of the methods got and how in your method you are going to address those limitations. So that is simply the arc which,
Sir, your connection is not stable, I think.
is it the case everywhere, friends? Are you missing me? I'm sorry, friends. This is typically the digital divide between you and me. Yes. Now, this I often confronted when I'm trying even university connection as well. Now, this Mobitel connection is actually jeopardizing all our connectivity, but let us try our best to be connected again.